Hey there, and welcome. I'm very happy that you came out for my talk. We're going to be talking about 2025 Authentication Survival Guide, and you cannot hear me out there in the background. Maybe like that. What about that? It's even worse. The other chance is if you come closer, it's gonna get better. Like that's probably the best that we can do for now. Anyway, it's gonna be recorded, so if you want, you can also later listen to that. But if you come closer, it's gonna be even more fun. So I'm Matt. I'm okay with any photos, recordings. If you want to record me, feel free for that. The presentation link is at the end, so if you want to verify me, please do. It's gonna be quite fast-paced because I want to share as much as possible. And if you find any error, I will send you a meme as a reward. So please look for errors because that's my plan. Today I'm going to be talking about the reality and about the promises that we're hearing from the industry. And the promise most of the time is like the multi-factor authentication is solving all of the problems. On the other side, you can see information that there is on the darknet. You can find out the multi-factor authentication bypass for sale for some of the banks for $1,000. So the story that I'm about to tell you is about the evolution and protection against the different threats. There will be promises, the habits that we're having as the users, and then criminal activities that I don't endorse that are related to that. And there are three paths that I want to show you. Users, like all of us, that just want convenience, that just want the security, the attackers that wants to monetize the access to what they're having, and the service providers. So, any service out there, like the mail provider, like the social media network, and so on, that just want to check the tick box related to the compliance, and that they're providing the service out there. And what is authentication about? In very simple words, it's a process when the service provider or identity provider, if you're from the SSO world and so on, is verifying who you are on the other side. How to verify it? By providing proof. So the user is providing proof, and this is something that we call authentication, so auth-n out here, to get you into the system. So the promise is that by the end of the session, you're gonna level up your posture when it comes to the security. We'll see why some of the multi-factor authentication is just the security theater, how criminals are bypassing some of them, and where is the human in all of this path. This is the full tech tree. By tech tree, I mean all of the methods that we are using as the users to protect ourselves, the methods that the attackers are using themselves to circumvent some of the attacks, and what are the methods that the service providers are using. I believe that's difficult to see, so don't worry, you can download the slides and see everything at the end. We'll be going through them step by step. Start very simply from tier 1. Just one more thing. Tier 1 from the very basics, tier 2 with multi-factor authentication, tier R, which stands for recovery of the account, and tier 3, which is like the most advanced method that are being used right now. So tier 1, passwords, we all know them. And the issue with the passwords is like they're prone to the brute force attacks. How they're prone? Well, if you're capable, feel free to make photos, no worries. Many passwords are being tested against a single account. The way the brute force works in that case is like anybody can test and find out if they can get into your way. How the service providers... Sorry? You can do picture, no worries, no worries. How the service providers are reacting. They're introducing the rate limiting, so they're limiting how many times you can try to log into the website. This is how they're trying to protect that against it. But then the attackers are starting to use the residential proxies, so they have more and more attempts that they can actually make against your account. I'm not endorsing that one, but you can buy millions of the IPs, and they will be retrying continuously to get into the accounts. Then there's a big issue, because like 78% of people are using the same passwords across multiple accounts. And on average, according to Dashlane, 240 is the number of accounts the average user has. If you think about it and add to it, like there is almost 1.5 billion accounts that have been leaked with Have I Been Pwned by Troy Hunt, there is an issue, because as humans we have a quite high cognitive load to remember all the passwords, so it's not really possible to keep it in the memory. And we have this bias like, hey, it's not gonna happen to us at the end of the day. So the next technique that the attackers are using is called password spraying. The way it works, you're looking for the most common passwords, like the raw queue that you can find out on the GitHub, and then you're testing it against the accounts that you're having. If you take 10,000 accounts, like emails, and you only have 1% success rate, it's already 100 accounts that you're getting into with the password spraying technique. Then there are tools. Some of them are free on GitHub, some of them are called checkers in the darknet, and they're being sold, some of them like as a service, so you can get them and get into the services. One of the most famous cases out there is attack against Australian Parliament, when they were using password spraying to get in there, and then the CISA was reacting to provide the protection methods. The next method is related to credential stuffing. So the way the credential stuffing works is like if 78% reuse the same password and we have like 1.5 billion of the leaks, well, somebody's probably having the same password in the other place. And the way it's working, it's like, again, on the service provider side, they are looking for the multiple failed logins for the same users. They're looking for the same IP that was being used to get in there, and also for the timing patterns, because most of the time they're automated tools that are being used to get into the systems. And here we come to the password manager paradox, because only 36% of people, according to the security org, percent of people are using the password managers, 51% of people are memorizing the passwords, and 34% of people are using the browser's password manager. The issue here is with trust, because what if password manager fails? The second one is complexity. Not everybody is such tech savvy that they know how to use that. The cost, because some of the features are premium, cross-platform use for the mobile, for devices, that your desktop and so on, and recovery, because what's going to happen if I'm losing the access to the password manager? And it's not like the people made it out of nothing, because there were multiple failures of multiple service providers that leaked out the passwords, and it keeps happening. So there is also a situation when some people are using password managers, but they're not aware of it, because password managers are part of the ecosystem, they're part of the browsers, and they're not aware that they're actually using one. And the protections that, for example, browsers provide vary. How they vary? Well, you can look for the tools like Lazan, which is a tool that is used for the password recovery. It's getting the passwords out of most of the major browsers. So if you're storing your passwords out there, it's not as secure most of the time as in the password managers, and some people just are not aware of the situation. But the alternative of not using password managers is even darker, because if you reuse password, well, it's vulnerable to credential stuffing. If you use the browser storage, it's often unencrypted, or you can get it out with extraction tools. The human memory, it's even worse, because then it leads to reuse passwords. So now it's time to jump into tier 2, so the second factor authentication. Here what I want to tell you is that not all of the multi-factor authentication is created equal. We're going to talk about short messages, about email, time-based one-time passwords, hash-based one-time passwords, push, and UTF. Which of those are better? What are the strengths and weaknesses and attacks? So let's kick it off with the attacks that are related to the golden age of the SMS OTP attackers. Because many providers started using it just to have a checkbox like, hey, there's the second factor authentication, password is something you know, and the SMS OTP is something that you have because you're owning the phone, you're owning the number, right? But then you don't need to have any additional application, you're just using your mobile device that everybody has. Very simple, very cost effective. Where it fails with the mobile apps that are gathering the information about the SMS OTP. So there are like apps that are designed to steal your one-time passwords, and they're having permission to read your messages. And these that you're seeing are the services that are being sold, services of the applications that are stealing the one-time passwords, and they're getting it to the attackers. Then there is an issue related to the telecom trust, which is related to the system signaling 7. The way it works is whenever you're connecting with your mobile phone to the tower, then the SS7 system is capable of forwarding your one-time passwords that comes from the SMS to somebody else. How to get there? If you want to go into details, of course, there will be all the sources to see how it works. But how criminals are getting it, if you look into 2022, it cost like $10,000 to get access to the gateway that allows you to perform the SS7 attacks. If you look at this year, there is some 0-day for sale for like $5,000. So the cost is changing over the time, and sometimes it's also possible and get it cheaper from like the telecoms in developing nations, because you can buy it out there, there's not much control over it, and they're not rate limiting you, and the prices vary from $1,000 to $10,000 a month. The cost change over the time is significant. Back in 2010, there was a company that was offering it to nation state for $5 million. Right now, you can find it for $5,000, which is like a 99% decrease in the price. So the cost to get your SMS OTP is even cheaper over time. The next issue that I'm calling the $50 problem is SIM swapping. So if someone gets your SIM or eSIM, they get your OTP, and well, it's profit for them, right? That's very easy. How is it happening? Well, there are three major methods. The first one is the golden era of the social engineering. Whenever somebody's gonna be calling the provider, like your telco, and saying, hey, sorry, I lost my SIM, please give me a backup one, and they have enough information about you, so your OPSEC was low and they have a good OSINT about you, they can probably get that and they can probably use that SIM. The success rate is average. I mean, the telecoms are getting better with that over the time, but there are other issues related to the insider threat. Some of the criminals are actively looking for the employees of the telecoms, and they're paying them, like with the message you can see on the right-hand side, to make a SIM swap. So they're actually part of the cybercrime. And we can see that also from the reports of the FBI investigations, and it's quite high success rate against high value targets. The next one is automation, because the providers, or the telco providers, they have their web portals. So the attackers are using automated tools to get into the portals and just order another SIM. For the US case, here is a bot on the Telegram. That one is quite expensive, but it covers majority of the providers. For performing the SIM swap, you're just talking to the Telegram bot, and you're getting a SIM swap of somebody. There are many cases like that. Back in the 2019, Jack Dorsey was SIM swapped, and he was writing some racist comments. It was not him, of course, but just somebody that used his account. And just 2 months ago, Matt and Spencer, another one that was a victim of the SIM swap cases. The next level is time-based one-time password. The idea is very simple. It's like whenever some service is asking you to, hey, please add it to your Authenticator app, you're probably scanning this QR code. This QR code includes a shared secret, and that shared secret, along with this information about time, is used to create the 6 or 8 digits number that you're inputting into the application. This is how it works very basically. The security assumption around TOTP is like the secret that is shared remains secret forever. Time synchronization shall be maintained. I mean, we shall be all in sync when it comes to time. The user verifies the website authenticity, and this code cannot be reused twice within the same window. And the issue with that one is like, users don't really know whenever they're becoming a victim of a phishing. So the 0.3 fails if the users are not verifying the website. And this 30 seconds is actually plenty for the attack schemes. So what is the example attack against that? EvilGenX is a tool that was created by Kuba Gretzky, which is a great pen testing tool. And the way that you can, that the victim, we can fall like a victim to that, is whenever an attacker is setting up the reverse proxy, the victim then enters the phishing website. The victim is providing these credentials and also the TOTP. On the proxy, the attacker is getting all of this information, so they're capturing on the EvilGenX, and the login is completed, and the attacker is having like the session key. They're already in the system. And if you look into the darknet related to that, there are some people that are selling fishlets. The fishlets are already existing templates of a specific website. Gmail is like $5,000. It of course varies by the service that is out there. They're having a full clones of the various popular websites. They're even providing the installation as support, and that's even better than some of the corporations out there. So the TOTP weaknesses are also related to the moment whenever you're scanning the QR codes, because there is some malware that is looking for that and is actively trying to reuse that. The compromise of the Authenticator apps, or insecure storage for some of the applications. So at the end of the day, because it's more important to provide the compliance, this window of opportunity for attack is not only 30 seconds, but also previous 30 seconds and the next 30 seconds, just to make sure the user logs in. So the convenience is most of the time the key for the service providers. One of the examples of the weaknesses is like the Google Authenticator back then in 2023. If you root the device, you have the capability to extract all of the data from the database, so you got all the shared secrets, which are no longer secrets. Right now it's hardware baked, but not all of the authenticators are storing that in the hardware storage. Then there are some legitimate tools that you can find on the GitHub that are being used for extraction of the shared codes, and sometimes they're also becoming a part of the cybercrime, so they're reusing those to create the malware apps. The next is then push multi-factor authentication. The way it works is like users entering the login and password, then the server is sending a push to the mobile device that was registered, then the user receives the notification saying, hey, do you want to approve this login or not? And whenever user is approving, they're in the system. What makes it secure? Well, there is a TLS connection. You, as a user, there is a real-time approval. There's no way to replay the attack. But the issue is, whenever the user is getting like 50 plus messages, they're getting very tired, and they cannot connect sometimes the attempts of the authentication to the attempts that they were performing. If you look at the attack against that is called MFA push bombing. So the idea is simple. The attacker gets the victim credentials, then there is an automated tool that puts it in. The user is getting a lot of the approval attempts. Sometimes there's also social engineering included. So somebody's calling the victim and saying, hey, this is IT support. I know you're seeing this a lot of push messages. Please approve it. We're gonna fix it very soon. And then it's game over because the attacker is inside the system. So it works because the users are annoyed, they have a job to do, they cannot stop, they just want to get over it, and most of the time this is why it impacts so much the MFA pushing. It happened with Uber, the famous case of Lapsus versus Uber. This is exactly what they did. They called it as a IT support to the victim, and they get into the system. How the service providers are protecting against that? Again, rate limiting, so limiting the amount of attempts you can have for a single account. And it's also happening for Apple accounts and so on, so it's happening every day. The next one is email OTP, which is a circular failure. So the issue is, if your email is protected by password and the password can be reset via email, and email OTP is code sent via email, we have circular dependency. So there's no security at the end of the day because email is the single vulnerable point. And wherever there is a demand for emails, there is also supply. These services out here are selling the email hacking depending on the account you're paying for the situation, for the cases when they actually get into the domain. You can find some of the actors that are paying for the bypass methods. There are even services that start from $2 to mail bomb your account. So whenever somebody's getting in there and you can get a message saying, hey, is it you on the account? You're automatically getting like 100 emails. So it's difficult to find it out amongst all of the noise that is out there. So the circular failure in here, the email OTP shall die. It's nothing that we shall preserve to have the quality out here. And the prices vary for account takeover on email from $0.50 per single account to $200, depending on who is the victim. The issue is, we're seeing a lot of dead multi-factor authentication. What are the dead ones? The first one is hash-based one-time password. This is like another variation of TOTP that is based on counter. So the crypto is similar, the approach is very similar, but there is a button that users are clicking whenever they're accessing a service. If they click it twice or 3 times, the counter is out of sync. When the counter is out of sync, users cannot log in. So almost nobody is using that nowadays. Universal second factor is nice, but it's not being used very widely. The way it works is like user provides the username and password, website sends some cryptographic material like a challenge, then the user is using their hardware key to and approve the request. Then the private key that never leaves the device is used to sign, is used in all of the process, and then the process is done. The comparison against TOTP that shows that it's better, it's resistant to phishing because the URI is being checked out here. It's not possible to perform the replay, and there are no shared secrets. It's all asymmetric. It's all asymmetric cryptography.
You say that it's not used well Is that because the service providers are not using it well? Or the
Users, yeah. So the issue is like there's a very low user base out there that are actually using the UTF. It requires hardware keys, which is like from 25 to 75 bucks, and also not all of the service providers are using it. But it's a better option. I mean, from the perspective of leveling up, it's a better way to protect your second factor, and that's the slide about it.
Your phone is your filing device, right?
Yes, your phone is, but not all of the service providers are providing that. So not all of the multi-factor are equal. If you're thinking about it from the gaming perspective, this S tier is UTF that is actually secure, but it's heavily underutilized. Then we have the push HTTP and TOTP that are decent, but they can be phished. So, well, if you want to set it up for your family, please think about that. Then there is a security theater, which is like SMS, OTP, and email, and passwords, please just don't use passwords. That's not really a good idea. The next one is tier R, and it's about the account recovery. The message here is very simple. Your account is as secure as your recovery method. So sometimes it's cheaper for attackers to get to use the recovery method than to attack the authentication itself. So there are a few methods. I'm not going to go very deeply into them. First one is related to answering questions on something you know, like what was the name of your pet, and so on and so on. The better OPSEC you have, the more difficult it's to circumvent. Then many users use unencrypted backup codes, like they store it in notes, they store it in gallery, they send it over email to themselves, and whenever attackers get access into that, they're just using it. Some of the backup like the MFA, for example, are not encrypted in the cloud. If they get into non-encrypted backup, they get all of the shared secrets. Some of them are based on the SMS. So then, if you perform the SIM swap, you can get get into the recovery process. The idea is there is a hierarchy that is related to the backups, and sometimes it's also related to social engineering. So somebody will be trying to call you saying, hey, please provide me the information. And even now the AI is being used you can look into the research out there to automatically scam people. So they used LLMs to call people and actually ask them for the logins and passwords, and it cost like from cents to $2 to get that from the people that were part of it. Then there is the document verification. So the assumption here is like only the user is having really the document to prove that it's them. But then there are services in the darknet that are providing the fake ID documents. So you can buy the fake documents on different parts from different countries. So the problem we have with the recovery, if there is a strong MFA and no recovery, the user can be locked out forever. They can be locked out permanently, so they don't have the access to the service. If there is a strong MFA and weak recovery, the attackers will go after the recovery. That's a simple way to move forward. Strong MFA and strong recovery, it's sometimes too complex for the users, and business is not accepting that for many times. 2 days ago, I met guys at Black Hat that were doing a great presentation about evaluating the recovery methods. The link to that will be at the end, so if you want to jump deeper, please do. Tier 3, the actually things that are matter right now and the more advanced methods. We're going to be talking about passkeys and risk-based authentication. The first solution about passkeys is related to you don't want to use passwords. It's time to kill the passwords forever. And passkeys are unphishable by design. There are no more passwords. There is asymmetric cryptography, and it shall just kill the passwords forever. The way it works, I'm not going to go into detail for the flow, but if you compare it against all of the tier 2, so 2FA methods, they're unphishable except UTF, so it's just a better solution because they're verifying the end service when they're releasing the cryptographic material. But I lied to you a bit because Passkeys is actually part of the web out end, and the web out end is the silent hero. This is a standard that sets up the stage so it can actually work for multiple devices and multiple providers. And it's a bit more complicated. I mean, the web out end is quite a big standard and it's complex to implement in many cases. So if you want to start using it, which I highly encourage, you can start dancing because On your device, you need to make sure that the passkeys are working, and they're working in the majority of the modern devices, but you need also to check the service provider, because not everybody is providing it. So here are links to the list when you can verify it. It takes two for tango, so that's the very simple message here. The issue is, the promise of the passkeys was like, hell, it shall be working everywhere, but you're gonna find these compatibility matrices for these 47 extensions that are part of the web authent, and it's not working perfectly in all of the devices. The second one, it shall be killing passwords, but you need to have a method to actually unlock your vault, so the place when you're storing the cryptographic secret. And sometimes people will use password for that, sometimes it will be PIN, sometimes it will be biometrics. What's the issue with the biometrics? Well, in some cases, you don't need a consciousness to unlock the compute to your phone. Like this lady that used her sleeping husband's fingerprint to unlock and find out that he had an affair, so the airplane had to land in an emergency. So that's what's happening. Anyway, passkeys are great. They're difficult to fish. They're not supported everywhere, and they're quite difficult to understand for the non-techy people. All that we talked about until now is solving the doorkeeper problem. I mean, authentication and getting somebody into the system. The problem is, like, whenever you're getting into the system, you're getting a session cookie, or you're getting just like the session token. And whenever you're coming back to the server, you're not authenticating again. You're just providing this cookie to the servers, and the service provider knows that it's again. The issue is, whenever the attacker will provide the same session cookie, they will be, the service provider cannot distinguish, is it you or is it attacker? And then we have attacks on the dark web that you can find, which is like a cookie harvesting. So you set up the phishing website, you're getting the cookies, and the cookies are being then sold and reused. There are automated cookie stealers from 200 to 500 set up for specific websites. So they're gathering the cookies, and then there is a malware like the Vidar stealer, which is quite recent one, when they're getting a lot, they're getting cookies and they're then reselling that, so that it's part of the attack. The problem, if I'm talking a bit too fast, no worries, you can replay that later. But the problem is, from the service provider perspective, they cannot distinguish if it's a user or if this is an attacker. So the next level that the service providers are introducing is additional questions like, where are you about geolocation? Or how do you behave about behavioral biometrics? Or are you coming from the same device, which is device fingerprinting? And of course, to circumvent the geolocation, there are the services like the residential proxies, so it's not always working. For how do you behave, some of the anti-detect browsers, which is tools that are created for the fraudsters, are already having like automation workflows that allow them to set up when you click, when you move mouse, when you scroll, so it looks like a user. And they're also getting the information about the fingerprinting. So the fingerprinting very basically gets the information about your hardware, so your device, about the software, what you have installed and how you're behaving. But the issue is, whenever the service provider is using this method, it impacts our privacy. I mean, if you look to cover your tracks EFF work, you can find out that they can track you actually across the websites. So it's a very difficult choice if you want to accept it or not, because they shall be protecting us and they're snooping on us by using those methods. And then there are dedicated services for stealing the fingerprint data, like the stealers are already getting all of this information, or they're calling it logs. So logs are the set of information for sale that include the fingerprint data, so it's already part of the fraud ecosystem. And then the anti-detect tools already have the settings to lie about the location, and if they also use the residential proxies, then that's not a protection. If they can circumvent behavioral biometrics, they can circumvent the fingerprinting. So no one is perfect, right? I mean, it's not possible to have a perfect tool even from the fraud perspective, and the way to protect against it, and I highly encourage you to look into the risk-based authentication. If you think about everything that we talked so far, tier 1, tier 2, different MFAs, and also the additional information from the fingerprinting allocation and so on, the service providers are trying to judge whenever that looks risky or not, and then they're letting you into the system or not letting you in. Your personal defense checklist, if you have time to verify yourself within 1 hour, please take a look how deep you are in this hierarchy, so you can go up, or you can also use it with your beloved ones. I'm gonna give you a link to that anyway. So the lesson at the end out here is like, when it comes to the MFA implementations, some of those are just like security theater, like SMS OTP, email OTP. Please don't go for that. The ecosystem of fraud, of the people that are trying to make money on the authentication, is quite large. They have a lot of methods, they have a lot of tools, and they're making money because they're attacking the users, like every one of us. So there are different strategies to protect against that, but it's good to know how it works, and to know that the human element can be fished in some of the cases, so we can be fooled for that. For the user, it's your choice, and it's a difficult choice, because sometimes you'll have to give away privacy, which is not nice with some of the fingerprinting or behavioral biometric methods. So it's your choice to choose the protection. It's your choice to choose a better MFA to protect yourself. Avoid passwords whenever it's possible, so use methods like passkeys. Protect your vaults, because if somebody gets access to your vault, they got access to all of the secrets. And secure your recovery methods. The idea is to level up for you and the loved ones around you, so you're getting better. Out here, you can download the presentation. There's like a landing. There are two links. One is for Canva for live presentation, other is for PDF. Thank you very much for coming. If you have any questions, feel free to talk to me, and see you next time. Just in time.